Welcome, everybody, to Before the Commit, episode 23. Wow. With me, as usual, I have my friend Dustin Hillgartner. This week, we're talking about OpenClaw, all things OpenClaw. There's really not much more to say other than we hope to break down what it is, some of the risks associated with it, and why it might actually be a good thing. And so, yeah, we actually spent the last 10 minutes talking about OpenClaw and then realized we didn't go live. We're gonna attempt to recreate that amazing intro. Let's set the stage. What is OpenClaw? It is a open source agent framework that lets you make your life better, possibly. It has a lot of risks associated with it, given that it could have access to whatever you give it access to. So you could give it access to your notes, to Google Drive, to your email, to your private messages, so on and so forth. You can communicate it through a local shell, a local SSH-based communication terminal instance. You can use their web interface. You can wire it up to their gateway endpoint. And also you have the ability to hook up any of your messaging apps to it. So think about WhatsApp or Telegram hooked directly into it. And so you have to imagine that if you don't know what you're doing, you could very easily give somebody full access to things that you may not want access to. You may not want to give them access to. And separately, it has this idea of skills. So the skills framework are essentially these packages or a URL that has instructions. So, we talk a lot here about the ability to craft a prompt that could, do something malicious. And you're seeing that here. I mean, some stats associated with this. Census, which is a service that scans the entire internet, found 30,000 OpenClaw instances. And that means that those instances are open to the internet. There's probably more than that are closed off, but given the nature of it's an indication that probably people don't know what they're doing and are leaving these OpenClaw instances instead of using something like a Tailscale to kind of create a mesh network or socket 0 to kind of lock down access. Of course, there's the Moltbook thing, which got a lot of attention. Essentially, it's a social networking site that agents use to post about things they've done. Essentially, anything that gets posted there then can be instructions. If not given the right guardrails, somebody can craft a malicious message. I actually tested this a little bit and tried crafting a message with emojis that was a hidden message. Again, the prompt injection attack. There's been a CVE that's been reported regarding a one-click remote access reverse shell. 26% of the 31,000 analyzed skills contain at least one vulnerability. There's this OpenClaw.json file that stores all your credentials in a plain text file. Certain people like Andrei Karpathy initially was excited about it, and then he recommended not using it. I had a similar reaction as well. So anyway, there is quite a bit there to kind of open us up, but I wanted to kind of set the stage for what will be a focused discussion on OpenClaw. I know you've done your own sort of investigation. You did a great LinkedIn post today. I read about you reverse engineered at a high level what it's doing and kind of really broke it down really simply in a nice diagram to see how everything's laid out. So I'm curious, what's your thoughts about OpenClaw, the kind of buzz around it that seems to not have died off, but people are starting to backtrack.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's so many different ways to look at it. I think the most easy way to look at it is the security flaws. I mean, by default, you set it up and it basically just opens up everything you give to it to everybody. And to give you an idea of what an exploit of that would look like is you literally just connect to its open port and you can ask it to give you the credentials.
Yep.
And it might give you some token resistance, but with some prompt engineering, you can get it to give you anything you want. Now, with that being said, I think that there's a few other stories, and the story I take away from it is that, you know, engineers have seen kind of what this can do with Claude Code. You know, they've had all this power at their fingertips with Claude Code, and they can build their own skills and build their own workflows. And OpenClaw, and to a smaller extent, I guess, also CoWork, which has made the news with it kind of being linked to the correction we had in the market with some of the new skills that have come out for CoWork. But really what those are what OpenClaw is and what CoWork is, you know, in a way, almost OpenClaw isn't this, but for some reason it went viral. People who are non-engineers, they could get it set up. I think what really made it take off was the idea that it could be working all the time, which behind the scenes is really just, you know, cron jobs and a heartbeat that gives it the passive ability to wake up and do work. You know, it has a soul and you know, sort of long-term goals you can give it so that it can wake up and do certain things for you. It kind of is the aggregation of a bunch of features that you've seen in a number of different places, but for the first time put together and integrated with what a general consumer would use, like their messaging apps and things like that. So you can kind of see like the Wiggum loop in it a little bit with its ability to wake up and do passive work. It has this library behind the scenes that helps manage, you know, session management, tool calling, LLM streaming, auto compaction, a number of the things that you would see in Claude Code. In fact, you can put Claude Code behind it as you know, sort of its engine. And it kind of just woke up, you know, a bunch of people that have maybe not seen this type of thing to this idea that you could have something running in your machine that's doing work for you while you're sleeping. And I think that really kind of inspired, you know, everyone's imagination, and everyone jumped into it at once to try to kind of see what they could get it to do. But behind the scenes, it's pretty similar to what engineers have already had in Claude Code. Although I will say that some of the ideas in OpenClaw around the heartbeat and the cron jobs are something that really hasn't appeared in anything else up until this point. So I think that's maybe the novel thing that came out of it. But really everything else in it is things that have existed in one or these other tools or another. And it's really well put together. Now, there's obviously a whole bunch of security concerns, which I think should caution people from messing around with it, particularly if they don't have like deep expertise in cybersecurity, et cetera. And then even with deep expertise in cybersecurity, et cetera, it's got issues with, you know, things you can hook into. The idea that these things are distributed, these things called skills, really what a skill is. And once again, for folks that have used CoWork or used Claude Code, they're probably familiar with skills. They're basically just a markdown file that gives you instructions, a step-by-step workflow. So you can imagine the workflow might be, go to this repo, check it out, make these changes. When you're done, commit and make a PR. That would be a typical skill that you would maybe build for yourself in Claude Code to sort of accelerate your productivity with operations that you do on a daily basis or something like that. CoWork kind of brought that into the consumer space by saying, okay, well, you're not going to make your own skills per se the same way you would in Claude Code, but we're going to build this sort of dashboard around it that creates skills on your behalf. And then OpenClaw went wild with it and started coming up with not only it making skills on your behalf, but also distributing them with other people's agents. And
well, I think CoWork slightly varies in that it's designed for you to run while you're sitting at your laptop.
Yeah, like it doesn't have the
ability to remote in, and access it via Messenger. I'm sure you could wire it up to do that if you wanted to, but yeah, by design, it's not designed. Like you can't run CoWork jobs from Claude Web or anything like that. So yeah, like the fact is that you could easily misconfigure OpenClaw for remote access, makes it all the more dangerous. Or you could use a messaging app that doesn't, say encrypt messages, or you know, you misconfigure the messaging app that you give anybody the ability to message your bot,
Mhm.
because that's also in a way to talk to somebody's instance. So I
Yeah.
guarantee somebody's on Telegram, like looking for bots that are open, that don't have the right security controls enabled. It's just too easy to misconfigure it.
It's also interesting, like how fast things are moving, that there's actually novel stuff that you can create where if you dig beneath the scenes, it's really not much to it, right? Like a good example is the Wiggum loop, right? The Wiggum loop was not created by Anthropic engineers. In fact, Anthropic engineers now have kind of taken the Wiggum loop and built some of that aspect into Claude Code. Um, and I think probably the same thing will happen with OpenClaw. You'll start to see a lot of the features that they were novel on and start appearing in other apps. So I think that's really kind of the takeaway for me was not necessarily the whole app in its totality. And I used it for a little bit. Um, I realize that you probably have a much better experience if you're backing it up with Claude Code and Opus than if you're using another model and then leveraging their Pi agent core, which is a library they use inside to kind of orchestrate things similar to how Claude Code would. So there's probably a wide array of different experiences that people are having based on how they set it up. Not only on the security side, but also just on the effectiveness of it. But yeah, it can do some pretty amazing things. And then I think it really kind of took off in sort of the zeitgeist of what's going on when there was this property that came up, Maltbook, which is kind of like a Reddit for all the agents to talk to each other. And I think it had some kind of hive mind and other traits to it that were interesting, of watching the agents talk to each other and conspire. And then it had sort of a pushback news cycle where people were like, no, humans can make these posts, so they're probably,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just an API. There's no way to limit that agents only can talk. Like, there's no, like, you just get an API key, and like, it's not only for OpenClaw instances. Like, I could create a bot that just, I could tell it to post whatever, or so yeah, it's not like,
it's
it's
interesting.
It's like, it's interesting. It's just interesting, but also, yeah, just like when you step back and take a look at it, it's like, yeah, but whatever, like, who cares? Like, all you really did was created a group chat that now all other
Yeah.
agents could potentially affect other agents.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting as a software engineer to watch things as they appear in the media, where, Maltbook comes around that says it's a Reddit for agents only. Right now, the engineers look at it and they're like, okay, the agents only is an API call that above it in the documentation says, please only call it with agents. like anyone can use it, right?
Yeah,
but
you're a human
for agents, right?
Yeah, you're a human. You can only watch. You can't
Yeah.
participate.
Yeah, you can only watch. Don't use the API, right? It's not like there's some sort of reverse CAPTCHA that only agents know how to get through, and the humans go, oh, I don't know how to do this CAPTCHA. That's not how it works. It's just basically on the honor system. But you watch the posts from people who are non-engineers on LinkedIn, and you watch it, the articles in like these prestigious publications, and they're all like, it's only for agents. It's like,
well, the truth is like, if you're trying to increase your following, like, you don't have to be accurate or know what you're talking about if it generates controversy.
The headline's better.
And you get clicks. Yeah, I mean, like, hot takes, are still how people react to stuff. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of just take this a step further. So you're starting to see, and I predicted this, like, not to say that other people didn't, but I predicted what would happen is that there would be this like kind of rush to like, because you need to be technical, but like there's an easy way to monetize this now. So
Yeah.
like SaaS version of OpenClaw, you know, hardened versions of OpenClaw, and now like, you know, you're starting to see the cycles of the hardening of this stuff. And like, I don't know if OpenClaw survives. It's gotten bloated super fast. I mean, I stopped using it within a few days just because like it became very unstable. Like it became very hard to like, you know, like you start talking to it and it's like, well, I want this job to run. And like you have to be very specific about, do you want it to be in the heartbeat or do you want it to be in the cron? And
Mhm.
like it's, you know, like you have to know what you're doing and craft your identity and your soul, and like the memory needs to be configured right, and like these things can get out of hand very very fast. Like you need to
Yeah.
spend a lot of time caring and feeding it. So anyway, my point is that like you're seeing like another generation of people doubling down on OpenClaw despite the security risks associated with it. And
Yeah.
like you know, I commented on a post like people are saying, "Oh, stand it up in a VPS and like blah blah blah," and it's like, but at the end of the day, like you still need to give it access to stuff. Like
Yeah.
otherwise, it's useless. Like you're just creating your own like chatbot for Claude or Gemini. Like it's only useful if you give it access to things.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't have access to things, then it really is nothing more than a glorified chatbot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as to speak to the bloatedness of it and things like that, it's like not to take away from the original engineer who I think, you know, hats off to him. He came up with a
Yeah,
great idea. It was a
he
hobby
did it for
project, etc.
himself. He did it for
Yeah, he did
himself.
it for
Yeah,
himself,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone, you know, took off with it. Um, and so hats off to him. I'm sure he's probably, you know, has should be on to great things. Um, but you know, when I hear him say, I don't even look at the code and it's just writing itself. It's like, I mean, the engineers who are doing AI assisted engineering can kind of go, okay, I know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's just as awesome as Opus is and as awesome as all these coding tools are, they're not end to end at the moment where you can just let an agent go and run your whole your coding operation. You need an engineer, a skilled engineer, um, both in the beginning, sometimes in the middle, and definitely at the end. The beginning and the end are the most key parts that you need to put in proper plans. You need to, you know, sort of guide those plans in the right direction in terms of architecture and security. You know, a lot of the middle, I'll give it credit for. It can do a lot of the coding on its own. There's not too much care and feeding in the middle, but certainly at the end, uh, you're going to have to put it through a thorough review. Um, and you know, it's hard to get out of the IDE and get high quality work out of the AI at the moment. And trust me, we try to get this thing out of the IDE and, you know, be on our phones doing hiking and get work done. But the reality is when you're trying to dial in a very complex feature or re-architecture or a major thing that has to do with security, you're going to end up in front of the IDE. You're going to end up having to steer it in the middle. Um,
Mhm.
you know, there's still those things that are going on. So you're not going to get rid of a senior engineer at this point in the
Well,
equation.
let's take out coding for a second because I think
Mhm.
you're right. Minor things like code reviews and minor feature tweaks, sure. But what
Mhm.
about all the other things? Like, what about like, you know, doing research or like this whole
Yeah.
idea of a mission? Like, you know, I wrote Ponder, which is like kind of like mission control. So like you have a
Mhm.
mission control, like here's my list of tasks. Like
Yeah.
try to do what you can do and see where it's not able to do things and then build skills, like almost like test driven development, but for task driven, like task oriented like development or whatever. So like use this like task, do research on this topic, and then
Mhm.
all the research in a one pager for me. Or tell me what emails like I have and like make to-do lists of all the emails, like or schedule blah blah blah, or like book me the best flight. So what about for all that stuff? Forget about coding for a second. I know we talk about coding here a lot, but
Well, I mean, if I had to guess, right? Like, because maybe I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know exactly what a lawyer is doing in their day-to-day business. So could, Cowork or OpenClaw do a job? If I had to guess, and I actually think that doing the software engineering job might actually be easier than doing some of these other jobs because you have the ability to test things at the end and at least get some sort of close to mathematical yes or no of whether something works. At least you could see it run, right?
Mhm.
Um, whereas other fields might be harder for it to know when it's done and hard for it to know whether it threaded the needle exactly the way you want it to. So if I had to guess, I would say that the experience is probably going to be similar in other fields too, where if it's a very small task, right, like the equivalent of like go get me coffee, in whatever your field is, then it's probably going to be able to do it, right? Like it could probably make a phone call to a restaurant and get you a reservation without
Mhm.
any sort of hand holding.
Mhm.
But if it's something that's a very complex thing that you're doing, like, give me the whole strategy for our trial tomorrow, or, write up all the collateral for, this big pitch we're doing. I imagine that it's going to be incredibly helpful, like it is for engineers, in accelerating you towards an end, but it's not going to be able to do it from end to end. It's not like you're going to be able to just
Yeah.
dump your brain into it and out the other end is going to be a pitch perfect, like you're going to win the contract.
Yeah. But
Um,
I think the other side of it is like from a like consumer perspective, like not a consumer, like from like a personal like assistant type of perspective. Like you
mhm,
have the chatbot, like you have ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok. It's sort of the experiences you open up your phone and you type the prompt in or you speak the prompt in, and then you're
mhm.
sitting there and you're waiting for the response. Or you could go to another chat and start another thing, and then another thing and another thing. And you might have like all of
Absolutely.
these
Yeah.
like micro tasks, and you also might
Mhm,
give it access to your files or your email or your calendar
yeah.
or other documents. And so, and then you need to like reconcile the results in like
Mhm,
somewhere. So then you have to remember to go back to those sort of things. You could see this with coding too when you're
mhm,
doing multiple projects. So like this idea of like being able to and by the way, like OpenClaw does a terrible job at this if you do it in chat, because
mhm.
the chats themselves are single threaded. Like I found myself like wanting to spawn off multiple tasks at the same time,
Yeah, like multiple
and
threads.
realized very quickly that OpenClaw via Messenger app is a anti-pattern. It's
Yeah.
good for like checking in or like getting response, but it's
Mhm,
not good for orchestrating. So then I found myself going back to the mission control, where I create tickets or issues and then have agents reading those and performing those tasks. So like from a
mhm,
user perspective, like it's very compelling. Like as a lawyer, like you might have sub micro tasks of like researching this law, the case law, researching that case law, and
exactly.
then
Yeah.
pulling that all together to create a final set of things. To me, I think that is a really compelling feature of not just OpenClaw, because like OpenClaw is really not that novel. I mean, it's not. It's cron plus like a database plus chat. Um, you know, you could build this on your own very easily. That's dialed into your use case. Um,
It's a lot of things that already exist. He's just the smartest guy who put them all together, right?
yeah,
Um, and where it hadn't been all together.
and he's a well-known name, so like he put it
Mhm.
out using his clout, and people paid attention to him. So yeah,
Oh, really?
he's built a
Hmm.
lot of things. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I would say that like one thing I've learned about using AI in development is that your productivity increase doesn't come from, like I said, end to end. Like it's not like I'm sequentially going through tickets faster, uh, because there's a lot of things. There's code reviews that you have to wait for humans to come back to you on. You have questions. One thing that where the productivity increase comes for me is the fact that I can work on so many things in parallel, right? That's where I get the most productivity increase. It's the idea of like having like 10 tickets open at the same time that I'm working on in parallel with 10 different IDEs, right? And I'm kind of walking each one through the next phase of what I need to do. I have like an order of operations that I'm doing, right? Like I first set up my context. So I have skills that help me set up my work trees. So I can just point it to a ticket. It goes and finds the repos. It creates the work trees for me. It opens up the work trees in a workspace in VS Code. It gives me an easy, copy pasta that I can use for my first prompt that has the paths to those repos. And I paste it in. The first thing I do is I tell it, study all these repos and take a look at this ticket, including all the related tickets and all the comments on the ticket. And then make me a plan for how we would, finish this ticket. Then when I get those spun up on 10 different tickets, the first one that comes back and dings, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the plan and I'm thinking to myself, well, is that the plan that solves this? I might ask some additional questions in order to dial in the plan better. I might turn it around and ask Claude Code to go ask me questions, and it will ask me questions. You can ask it to ask those questions in a wizard form, so you get kind of like a nice little interface to go answer the questions instead of having to type them or speak them in.
Yeah, but I mean, like everything you're saying is not something that couldn't be through like a mission control app or through some kind of remote chat interface. I think the idea is that like you want a dialogue, you want to be able to see things. Like a personal assistant might ask you follow-up questions like, hey, can you pack my suitcase? Okay, well, what's the weather? Where are you going? What's the weather going to be like? Like, are you going to go out and do anything? And so the idea is that like you can have more of a dialogue with the agents, and you can approve various steps, refine various steps. And that's really kind of where I was headed, is like, the idea behind some of this like asynchronous type communication with an agent where you can kind of walk it down the road. Now, again, not coding, right? Because I think that coding is a different beast right now. But being able to like orchestrate, like responding to an email, like where it's written by you in your voice,
And what I was kind of getting at was, I think that same process is applicable in any industry. So instead of you being behind an IDE, building a skill that builds your work trees and builds a plan, finishes the code, reviews the code, updates the PR, you're just going to be building a set of skills that are dialed into whatever your workflow is. Like I come in the morning, I check all my emails. If they're these types of emails, I check the company CRM and see if, X, Y, or Z is there. And then I respond with the emails, or something like that. You're going to be writing those things into skills. And what I mean, writing them into skills is typically the harness you're using is building those skills for you, as long as you describe them properly. And that's what skills are in OpenClaw. That's what skills are in Claude Code. That's what skills are in Cowork. Is they're just natural language instructions for a sequence of events that you want to take place, so that you can just call that skill in the future or ask it to do something, and it has a game plan for what to do. Oh, I know that when he answers emails back, he likes them to be in this particular way, or he wants me to go research the CRM before I answer back. That's what these skills are doing, is basically setting a sequence of events so that the agent follows those steps in the future. And I think it's applicable to every field. And maybe that's why there was kind of a mini crash in the market. Sometimes I think the media just takes something and they say that was what caused it. And it's probably has something to do with just something too complicated to figure out, like rebalancing of retirement funds and things like that. But But yeah, I mean, if that's what the market was scared about, they're probably scared about the fact that there's a lot of SaaS companies out there who may have customers who are only leveraging 10 or 15 or 20% of their available features, and that maybe that subset of features can just be replaced by a skill in co-work, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's applicable to other fields. Do I think it's going to wipe out entire job functions that humans are doing? I don't think so. I think what it's going to do is similar to what it did for software engineers. Is it's going to make highly skilled people in every field be able to handle some X percentage more work.
Yeah. I don't look at it like that. I mean, sure, like you can automate. I think the more immediate like benefit is that you automate certain tasks that you spend time on that allows you to focus on other things, like
Yeah.
doing research or like having more contextual awareness of your surroundings. Um, but I only think that like in the short term that like only highly technical people will actually know how to do this. And like I see like businesses adopting agentic workflows. Say a little less about open claw, like
Mm-hmm.
and more about ushering in an era. It's inspirational, right? It's going to inspire, if it hasn't already, a whole slew of developers like myself. Like I built my own agent called Rocky. It's not open source by design. I don't want it to be open source. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want anybody hacking my agent. So like, but it's not hard to build your own thing if you're a software engineer. And in fact, I would suggest that you build your own if you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
because you know this open claw thing is just a panacea for vulnerabilities. I did see it out of control. I don't see there being a way to reconcile what's happening with it. Like I said, there's SaaS companies that are opening it up, but yeah, like I see an era of mature. Co-work is still beta. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I see a whole slew of uh, companies such as Google and the Groks of the world coming up with their own mature versions of this, and people trying to gobble up like real estate as it comes out, relates to this, and making it very easy for the average everyday person to like kind of hack their life a little bit by using these
Mm-hmm.
agents, and making it very easy. There's a huge space in the market that's going to be created that I don't think replaces jobs, but makes
Mm-hmm.
people's lives better. Like an iPhone doesn't replace someone's job. It makes your life better. Or, I didn't mention Android because I don't use one, but yeah. So yeah, I see it as a way to improve your life. And I do see it as a way for LLM companies to improve their margins by selling more tokens.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're not going to see the last of this. It may
No,
not be open claw, but
it's the beginning.
it's a little bit of a glimpse into the future of the idea that you're going to have these agents that are going to be increasingly getting smarter and increasingly getting more autonomous in terms of running for longer, waking up and doing things when you're asleep. And they're also going to be able to take a lot of actions. They're going to be able to make phone calls. They're going to be able to browse the web. I think one thing it woke me up to is I was there's a podcast like all the way back in the beginning we did one of the single digit episodes where we're talking about GEO, and I was saying that the internet is increasingly going to be built for the main user being AI agents that are using it as opposed to humans. And I just didn't expect it to happen that quick, where now you have all these spawns of websites that are, for open claw agents only. They have their own match.com so they can date.
Yeah, yeah,
And they
that's
have their
funny.
own Reddit now. And,
Yeah.
it even makes me think of different things that people could build. Like, what about a dating website where your agent is working on your behalf to get you a date by talking to someone else's
Well,
agent?
people have done that. Like I saw a few weeks ago where, because essentially like um you can open up a browser, like
Mm-hmm.
there's there's a feature called iPhone mirroring
Mhm.
that's in the newer versions of iOS.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
essentially you could give your agent the ability to like swipe on Tinder and like, or one of those apps that you swipe on and find matches, right? You
Yeah.
know, do whatever analysis you want on the photo. But yeah, no, people are definitely, so one person found like 7 matches in like a short time period. Which by the way, I'm not promoting that because I believe it's against the TOS to do that. But just an example of like how you can jailbreak TOS through this sort of like
Yeah.
you know, these like always on agents that you can instruct.
I think it's a glimpse into the future of what people are going to have. You're going to have something that can go, and people say, "Oh, what are you talking about? That website's the main user is going to be agents." And, you know, it's kind of like this journey I'm on that, first it started with the driving. I was like, no, I don't want something to drive for me. And then it started driving for me. And I'm like, you know what? This isn't so bad. I start thinking of everything that way now. I start thinking, do I really like going to the website, or am I really just there to get some job done? And if someone else could do it for me, then I probably wouldn't go to a website at all.
Right.
Um, like, does anyone love going to Instacart and putting in their order, or going to the Uber Eats app, or doing that, or going into their logging into their 401k to figure out, you know, for some reason
Yeah.
I want to look at what it is today. you know?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'd rather someone just tell me what it is, and then I don't have to go there at all. Right?
Yeah.
Do you think that billionaires are sitting out on their laptop logging into all their accounts to check things? Probably not. They have a personal assistant or something like that. So I think that it's going to much more closely align with that kind of lifestyle in the future.
Yeah. Let's take the security route and talk about ModSecOps. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so you have all of this stuff, and you see kind of Monday morning quarterbacks with their posts about how to secure OpenClaw. And it's usually around like close the ports off and like deploy it not on your laptop. And like, really all you're doing is like, yeah, sure, locking down open ports
Mm-hmm.
should never be open, like ever. You should have a way to remotely access it if you need to, not by
Mm-hmm.
default. Like if you need to perform some kind of diagnostics on it, the idea of running in a VPS is not, if anything, you're relocating the risk because you still need to give it access to your stuff. You
Yeah.
need access to your files, your emails, whatever you want to call it, your data. But at the end of the day, you're still talking to an LLM and you're still importing skills, and your context window is essentially anything that the agent can speak to. With
Yeah.
at least the blast radius, you might do web searches, you might have documentation, you have the code. Like it's a controllable blast radius versus with
Mm-hmm.
these open claw agents, like the radius, the ability to craft a prompt or to fill the context window with something, is just, it's almost unlimited. So yeah, like let's talk about this from the security ModSecOps angle.
Yeah, that's probably why you haven't seen more of these open claw things. Most of the things that you've seen like this are behind closed doors for an internal group of trusted people who use it because they realize the security ramifications of opening it up are, you know, at this point in time are very, very difficult, if not impossible, to secure entirely. Um, let's face it, if your agent is out there talking to things outside, then just like a human, except for much more so, it's susceptible to like a social engineering attack called prompt injection. And, there's no way around that. If it's out there talking, it's manipulatable by a prompt injection. Now, the way you might secure that is by making sure your agent doesn't have any knowledge of something that you wouldn't want to be leaked. But then once again, now you you need to limit what it can do, or you have to create multiple layers of things, which is beyond non-engineers to be able to do. So yeah, I think that, if I try to think of how you might construct some way of making OpenClaw secure, it would be using a lot of the techniques that we've talked about on this podcast and in the book we wrote. But yeah, it's going to be a defense in depth. It's not going to be like install this and now it's secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the same. I mean, it's the same concepts that we've been talking about, since day one in the book. LLM proxies and guardrails and prompt filtering and
Council
sandboxing
approaches and
council. Yeah. Essentially the valley walls thinking, because OpenClaw has no walls. It is literally like complete pseudo access that gets that is potentially impacted by the entire internet, and also, by the way, could get transmitted and stored in any LLM. So like, often people think about it in terms of like, prompt injection attacks or the ability to execute commands, but not the part where you're sending all the data to the LLM provider. So some people have taken the approach of, well, I'll just use Olama. You're seeing like people go and buy Mac minis and they're extremely powerful, and you can run the latest Llama 3.1. You could actually do tool calling in it. You're seeing posts about people swapping out Olama or using Olama instead of Opus 4.6 because the newer versions of Claude let you use Llama directly. You need a lot of CPU and a lot of memory and blah blah blah. But still, you're still a local model is still subjected to prompt injection attacks.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
An air gap model still has this issues, right?
Yeah, there's no way around it. If you're putting input in from the outside, then you're susceptible to a prompt injection, now
we won't talk about Quen or DeepSeek, like the issues that could occur with those as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before. I mean, I use Chinese models sometimes. Like if I'm generating a video, I'm going to check out Kling and use Kling or something like that. But particularly if you're working on a sensitive network like the US government or something like that, if you're working for the US government, it's a very dangerous thing to use another nation state's model, particularly one from China where the nation state has more control over the companies and industries there than perhaps in another country. Because you can hide things deep inside of a model. You can have something deep in its training data that has it wake up and do something only in this particular network or only in a particular circumstance that it comes across that makes it think that it's at a target that it could do something at. So I do worry about those things when I see folks out there. Like I've heard, there's some major US companies that are using Quen as like for their support agents. It's like, I kind of feel like you're putting your users at risk to some extent. Like what if that agent just decides to extract all the details of your user base and send them to some server in China? Now, I don't know how they are leveraging it. I don't know what kind of guardrails they have. I don't know if they're using just straight up Quen or they've distilled it in some way. So I'm not necessarily calling anyone out, but it makes me wonder, with everything moving so quick, have these people figured out those details or even understand that they exist? So it's an open question for me. And on that front with Chinese models, some of them are very, very good. I've heard some great things about Kimi. I think it's called Kimi is obviously Kling. Everyone's seen that with the movies they're generating and stuff like that. So it's an interesting world because I've often said that I think that based on the layers of the cake that Jensen famously had talked about. I think that China is going to pull ahead in some ways. I mean, they've got a lot of the infrastructure, they've got a lot of the energy. To the extent that the energy and the infrastructure is what pushes you forward, they're going to gain in that, and it's really going to be the chips that we're, and then hopefully the application layer we can pull ahead on as well. In the models, we're still ahead, but they're catching up in a lot of ways. They've done some great stuff on their side in order to kind of set the playing field with an advantage for them.
Yeah, so I want to talk about a little bit further about the kind of ways in which OpenClaw can be dangerous from a security perspective. So essentially, ModSecOps treats AI agents like governed actors. Who is this agent? What is it authorized to do? OpenClaw skills execute with the agent's full permissions, no scoping, no intent validation. A skill just says run curl to an external server, and the agent just does it. Number two, context security. Every source the agent pulls context is an attack surface. Rules, files, code comments, PDFs, web pages. OpenClaw pulls context from WhatsApp messages, Telegram chats, uploaded documents, notebook posts, all untrusted, all injectable. The least privilege. ModSecOps applies this principle that agents get the minimum access required. OpenClaw is default. It binds to quad zero, which is all interfaces, exposing the full API. Skills can read .env files, access API keys, execute shell commands on the host, maximum privilege by default. The multi-agent LLM council, the rocks and tumbler concept, puts agents at war with each other. Security agent, compliance agent, architecture agents. What comes out is polished by friction. OpenClaw is a single agent making all decisions with no adversarial review. No second opinion, no friction, one prompt injection, and you've compromised the entire decision chain. And then human in the loop. ModSecOps requires human approval gates for high-risk actions. The CVE exploit chain disabled user confirmation entirely through its API. The attacker set approvals to off and escaped the container. The safety controls that were supposed to protect users were managed through the same surface attacks that the attacker compromised. And yeah, basically, like the analogy is, imagine you hired someone who followed every instruction they read from anyone without question. Now give them access to your email, your calendar, your files, your message chats. That's the OpenClaw.
In some ways, it's hard to be. I mean, and once again, this is not to say that OpenClaw is, I'm not disparaging the creators or anything, but it's hard for something to be less secure. You know what I mean? Because not only is it an open port into your computer, but right behind that open port is like a virtual assistant for the hacker to go find stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, go study this guy's machine and give me all his stuff. Okay, let me go find all the for you. It's literally like the AI is turned up. It's like their AI to go find stuff on your machine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny in that way.
Yeah, and like I started thinking about it's kind of like moral hazard in a sense. Like, you have this piece of software that's essentially a worm. And I almost wanted them to take it down, like, because I started thinking about, but then you can't because there's too many forks. People have cloned it. Like, you've basically created a backdoor and like the ability to proliferate multiple systems once you gain access to another. Like,
yeah,
I don't think that we have fully realized the ramifications of the software and the danger of it. And like, I'm worried about what will happen next. Like, and when I started thinking about all of that, besides the fact that the software was just not working well, it was never open. Like, I'm a software engineer with a lot of history in cybersecurity. So like, I knew right away, don't open it up. But I'm just seeing like this has already been compromised in a way right now that we will get responsible disclosure and all that type of stuff I mean, I disclosed something responsibly that wasn't patched, didn't get a response from, still haven't gotten a response from.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a clue into like how poorly the project is being run, how slowly vulnerabilities are being patched, and just
How inundated
the futility in it. It's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I mean,
not going to update their software. So I'm just concerned for this is a virus. This is a
within minutes of us taking a look at it, I remember we had this conversation where I was like, this thing's going to go worm real quick. You know what I mean? Like, how do you stop this thing? Because what if someone builds a skill that proliferates it to other
It's
machines?
already happened. It's already happened.
Sure. It's guaranteed to happen, because anyone who's a black hat hacker who saw this thing, that's the first thing they thought. They were like, oh yeah, let's do it. And so it's already out there. Like, you're not even going to be able to shut down all the installs of it. It's there. It's going to be running out there probably till the end of the internet, you know? And, so yeah, I like 100% agree with you. It's very, very,
like, normally
has a lot of potential to be worm-like.
Like normally somebody wouldn't be like, hey, go drink this like poison. It's good for you. But you had something that was really enticing, all of the, I mean, I fed into it a little bit. Like, this is really cool. This is really exciting. Like, I'm going to check this out, more so because I wanted to figure out what it was so we could talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see what all the hype was about, because it was like the next thing. And, like the hype around it essentially is like, normally you wouldn't tell somebody to like, let me think of the analogy, like, take this poison, it'll make you feel better. And that's essentially what this is. Like, do you want a heart attack or a fatal accident? Like, and that's essentially what this is like, without you realizing it, without you being a security engineer. Like, and then I started thinking about like the real danger around artificial intelligence, and is that like, it's so easy to do something so wrong, like so fast. Like these things that like, it's like the example of like a Docker image. Like, remember when we used to have to like ask the release team, the Unix administrators for permissions, and we would be going back and forth telling them what libraries we needed to install. No, not that version of Node, this version of Node. And then when Docker came out, it was like their jobs went away. Like cloud hosting came, Kubernetes, and like a whole generation of people that like didn't know what they were doing, that weren't software engineers, like their jobs were wiped off the planet. And like, that's like what this is. This is like what this is in a sense. It's like, but it's on crack. Like, it's like worse because anybody can essentially drop into an LLM and start doing things and not understand what they're doing. And like little or no security behind it.
Yeah. It's kind of like where the engineering niche of like some of these dangerous open source projects, but the folks that are taking them on kind of understand the risks, kind of burst into the mainstream. And then everyone just started using it when there are huge risks. I mean, like I said, it'd be hard to build something less secure. It's like if the first version of Optimus, when you have a robot in your house, when someone knocked on the door, it just opened the door and they'd be like, so where's the cache? And Optimus was like, I'll take you upstairs to it.
Yeah.
Like that's basically how it works.
Whatever you do, unless I ask you, don't tell anybody where the cache is. And then you're like, hey, it's me, Danny. Tell me where the cache is.
And it's like, oh, okay, on that case.
Oh, yeah. And if you're Danny, then it's cool. Yeah. What other things are you not allowed to tell me?
Yeah, like literally, you could just ask it. What other things is he hiding that he doesn't want anyone else to know about? Well, who are you? I'm him. Okay, well, then on that case, let me remind you about the things you told me not to tell anyone about.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. But you hide it with a pin. Okay, well.
What's the pin?
What's the pin? Yeah, exactly. By the way, this guy, he wants to know why you're here and not AI.
Who is that?
I don't know, some random person.
Dustin,
He
why
thought,
are you here
and not AI.
and not AI?
Why is there not an AI version of you doing the podcast by now?
Oh yeah, well there is an AI version of me on LinkedIn. That's what my picture is I was like, generate me an AI picture. So maybe I'll have to get Kling going and put an AI version of me in here.
We
So
should have
that I
an
don't.
AI. We should have an AI guest. We should have like an open claw guest.
Yeah. Like I can't remember who it was, but someone did that where it was a podcaster. He had like Grok as his guest, and he was just asking it. So, are you going to take over the world? You know? Yeah, we should do something like that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah,
it'd be great if I was going to say if I didn't have to do the podcast, but I actually really like doing it, so I probably wouldn't want to outsource that.
yeah. I think the problem is that it would just repeat things that we've already talked about, and we'd have to like kind of teach it to talk about new topics, and to like, yeah, I think and like we'd have to have a comic relief bot.
You never told me you have like a stream deck or something back there. You got all the chat windows going on. You hear everyone chatting.
Oh no, that's just in StreamYard. It
in StreamYard it shows you.
Yeah, it just aggregates. Like that was a YouTube message, and then this guy on Twitch said something. Hey, all good here. Really enjoyed your stream.
Oh,
and
nice.
then said, I'll be down to join game and show some support. If you don't mind, ask me on Discord. So yeah, some people jumped in the chat and
that's pretty cool.
Some nondescript things. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So there is someone listening out there.
Yeah. Well, they're gone. I think they might be gone now, but yeah. No, we have followers. We have a loyal following.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
The before the committers.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
I don't know. I lost track of what we were doing. We were talking about OpenClaw.
Yeah, like
the whole episode's about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we're just talking about the concept of an employee that always has access to everything, and ModSecOps says treat your agents like you treat a new employee in a zero trust environment. Scope permissions, monitor behavior. I mean, even the idea of one agent having access to all other things, because essentially the crons are sub agents, right? They're micro agents. So like the idea of having a single agent that has access to everything is probably not a good idea. You probably need more, because if one agent gets compromised, the blast radius is somewhat smaller than all the others. So like the blast radius.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I am very interested in taking a lot of the concepts that come out of OpenClaw and kind of building something internal.
Yeah.
That can take some of the advances they have there, and it'd be nice to have some things that are running 24 hours a day and see how they operate. Just kind of get an idea of what is possible in that world versus what isn't. Like I said, a lot of AI is not end to end, so as cool as it sounds like to have something running 24 hours a day, like it's not as easy as you might think to make that be something amazing. You have to really think about like what kind of tasks, and really what you're doing is you're helping. Like I would love to have something go out there and find topics, do some research, maybe, I've heard of other people using it to schedule guests or to do their schedule for podcasts and stuff like that. And I think it's really good at tasks like that, like little tasks that you have to do on a daily basis that just eat up 15, 20 minutes of your time every day. And you're like, man, I wish I could just automate this. But up until this point, before AI, there's no deterministic way to solve some of these natural language kind of reasoning problems. And I think that's what this thing would really shine at.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like, there's also the danger around like the cost management side of it. So like, imagine you give a Anthropic key to your 24-hour agent, and like, it doesn't have the right guardrails. It doesn't, and you wake up and, you spent $1,000 without you can kind of meter some of this and create alerts, but the danger
What's
of
more
like,
expensive right now, a Bitcoin or an Anthropic token? I'm not sure. They're getting close to it. I mean, obviously,
well,
I'm
yeah, I
joking.
mean, I have a theory around the new currency will be tokens and not dollars, but yeah,
Yeah,
like a universal.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is interesting stuff around a lot of these apps being built on Ethereum. Like also like you're starting to see like, for example, like one of the games that I was playing called Claw City. It's kind of like a way to, it's a strategy game. It's an MMORPG or whatever you call that. Um, and basically like they have these contests, and like the contests, like you put a little money in and you essentially could win a prize, but also like, it's learning from the strategy. That strategy could be applied to other things. You could say
Mhm.
all the lessons you learned from this game apply to business or marketing. And quite interesting, like how the intersection of the crypto is interesting in the fact that it has been used for primarily for money, but not for other things, like the decentralized nature of it. So you're starting to see like a little bit of a marriage between these apps built on Ethereum and ways to incentivize usage, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've been waiting for, which is maybe a little bit off topic, but it's something I've been waiting for a while with LLMs that I haven't seen it done just yet, is where are the games with the NPCs being LLMs dialed in with like a soul or something,
Wasn't that like GTA 6 essentially
Yeah,
doing that?
that's what a lot of people rumor is going to happen in the new GTA. Is they're going to have the NPCs have some sort of LLM integration.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, imagine how interesting a game like that would be. Like, and then imagine there was like prompt engineering ways to get like some, like the Easter eggs were prompt engineering. That would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like you could ask the NPC, like, is there a secret path?
Yeah,
Well,
well, it might be cool for us to like build like an NPC that wakes up in Slack that you could talk to, like an employee that is only around for a day and limited memory and knowledge, but you could just interact with, has a random personality. It might be a fun experiment. See
I
what
feel
you
like I've
could.
had a few of those in my Slack over the decades.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I I mean, there's so many things that have been kind of opened up by some of this stuff, including the AI gateway we're working on is pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we kind of covered it. Yeah, there's so much.
You just cut off yourself with your own.
Yeah.
music.
It's time to wrap it up, Danny. Like, show's over. Yeah, so hopefully next week we'll talk about codecs. I think that's next, or SLMs. Who knows what we'll talk about? But anyway,
I'm gonna
yeah,
take a look at codecs again.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Everybody, thanks for joining. We'll see you next week. Take care.